Delegates from across the African continent have gathered in Abuja, Nigeria to participate in the 7th annual meeting of the Africa Economic Zones Organization. This meeting coincides with the 30th anniversary of the Special Economic Zone scheme in Nigeria, with $26 billion investment attracted to the country through the free trade zones. Nigeria has created 9 free trade zones across the country. For several years, countries have used free trade zones policy to encourage foreign investments and collaborations. Africa hopes to explore the potentials of this platform to grow its economy.
As you deliberate on the theme of the annual meeting, African Special Economic Zones, Engine for Resilience and Accelerator for Sustainable Industrial Value Chain Development, I urge you to critically examine the factors inhibiting the growth of free zones in Africa and come up with appropriate measures to address any identified challenges.
An example of this is the recently commissioned deep sea port in Lekki, Lagos, and an oil refinery pegged to become the largest single train facility of its kind in the world upon completion. There is another free zone project located in Brass Bayelsa State that has helped put Nigeria in a position to become a net exporter of fertilizer.
President Muhammadu Buhari, who was represented by the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Umana Umana, says African Economic Zone Organization annual meeting provides a platform to promote manufacturing and industrialization. Nigeria hopes to transform from an importer to an exporter of fertilizer alongside driving local manufacturing of oil and gas. Now, the message here is for Africa to grow beyond exporting raw materials to industrialization. But some factors like lack of power or basic infrastructure have been a clog in the wheel of progress for most African countries. The Africa Development Bank hopes to change this.
The African Development Bank has invested over $7.5 billion in the past 5 years alone to expand access to electricity, which has provided electricity for 20 million people.
Officials say Nigeria can boast of having benefited from the Africa Free Trade Zone with about $6.6 billion investment in oil and gas sector alone in the last 7 years.
A number of Nigerians have acquired skills relevant in many technological aspects, in addition to a number of Nigerians that have been employed through direct and indirect employment through various companies across the zones.
We have some bright spots in Africa. He mentioned Ethiopia. I also believe Nigeria is doing well, and it's only a matter of time with the operators and those who run the authorities from Africa coming together to compare notes. I believe that this peer group review mechanism would help other African countries also take full advantage of the free zone scheme.
The Secretary General of the African Economic Zones Organization, Ahmed Benis, says the Continental Agreement has created an enormous single market with a combined GDP of $3.4 trillion and is forecast to boost intra-Africa trade to reach $16 billion.
What is important for us today is to build up together within our organizations, the African Economic Zones Organization, is to build up the African Special Economic Zones model. What is maybe lacking today is the financing, and that's why I'm calling the international financial institutions to support SEZ projects development across the continent.
The central bank should come up with a policy on free zone banking, because that will really attract investors into the country.
We have 2 public zones owned by government, which we are handing very soon. We'll hand that over to the private sector, because it's actually a private sector thing. So because now you see that most of the zones that we have that are private sector are doing extremely well.
The theme for this year's meeting is the African Special Economic Zones, Engine for Resilience and Accelerator for Sustainable Industrial Value Chains Development, reflecting the need for African governments to retain investors' interest by ensuring a conducive business environment. Georgina Ndukwezainka, Arise News.